Hi Anand, can you hear me? I can't hear you actually. 1 minute. Can you hear me? Hello? Okay, I can't hear you. I can't hear you somehow. Yeah, Anand, I think I can hear you now. Can you speak? No. Hmm. Hello, Gagan, can you hear me? Okay, I think people are able to hear me. Okay, but I think Gagan, I'm not able to hear you. Hello, Gagan. I think I'm getting a very feeble voice. Hello, can you all hear me?
Can you hear me now, Ashutosh?
Yes, Gagan. Now it is perfect, crystal clear. Yeah.
Great, great. Welcome to the session, Ashutosh. Apologies for being a minute late. Uh,
No, no worries. No worries.
okay, we have people joining in the session. We already have 30 more will join in. Uh,
Hmm.
for for people who are watching, please put your questions in the chat, not in the event chat. Please put it in the so that we can collate your questions and we can ask those questions to Ashutosh later. And you can also poll in this polling window about this session. So, Ashutosh, without wasting any time, let me welcome you. So, Ashutosh has 20 years of pioneer experience in the industry. He's an agile strategist. Uh, Ashutosh, I would let you take over from here. You can speak about yourself something and then start your presentation. There is a small window desktop button in the down.
Hmm.
Click
Hmm.
on that, share your deck, and I'll be watching closely. And if you need anything, I'll be here.
Okay, fine. So just let me know if my presentation is visible now.
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. Thanks, Gagan. And first of all, thanks to Regional Scrum Gathering team for inviting me for this topic. And it's an honor to be associated with Scrum Alliance and with the Regional Scrum Gathering Hyderabad as a part of a speaker panel. My name is Ashutosh Bhatodekar, and I'll be talking about a topic which is very, very close to my heart, and it is from a coach's perspective. So when we go in any transformation, um, what is it the narrative? What is the kind of narrative we should be talking about? Should we be talking more about the output side of things, or should we be talking about the outcome side of it? So this is a dilemma which even I faced in many of my transformation engagement, and I thought that okay, let me talk about it with a wider audience. And just a disclaimer here, when I say coach, I also include the scrum master into it. Okay, so don't ask me, okay, what about scrum master? So I firmly believe in what the literature talks about, that the scrum master is the coach for the team. So that's the narrative, and that's the assumption I would be going when I move into this topic further. So, as I said, my name is Ashutosh Bhatodekar. I'm more a design thinker, a curious thinker, and a learner. I won't call myself as an expert. I'm also like you, learning from experts like all of you. Those are my social media contacts or coordinates. If you were to link with me on social media, another disclaimer: I'm not that active on Twitter, but you'll find me on LinkedIn, pretty active. So anyone interested, do connect with me on LinkedIn. All right. Just let me go back. Yeah. Hello.
Sorry to interrupt. We can see your
Uh,
screen, but we cannot see your presentation if you're sharing one.
oh, okay. Okay. Wait a minute. I thought that I had shared the presentation. Give me a
Yeah.
minute.
Yeah.
Mm, wait a minute. Just a minute.
Sure. Please take your time. Meanwhile, Ashutosh, quick check. Do you need me to give you a time check, 10 minutes or 15 minutes before?
Yes. Yes. That would be better. I mean, that
Great.
would really help. Yeah. Yeah.
Will do. Great.
Yeah. That would really help.
I'll show my
So.
face, and then probably you can understand that it's 10
Hmm,
or
hmm,
15
hmm.
minutes.
1 minute. Okay. Give me a minute. So is the presentation visible now?
We can still see your screen and not
Hmm.
the presentation.
Okay, I don't know, because I'm trying to share the through application window only. It is not listing in my application window because there's something else.
Probably you can share your entire screen and open that application. That will
Okay,
also work.
okay. Give me a minute. Yeah, I've shared my entire screen now, and now I'm
Yes.
opening this application.
Now,
Let me know if you can.
perfect, perfect. We can
Yeah.
see
Okay.
all of that.
Okay. Okay, so sorry for this interruption. Yeah, so this is about me. So I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on the Twitter, but as I said, I'm not that active on Twitter, but I'm definitely active on social media. I mean, LinkedIn is definitely where I'm a lot of things where you'll see a lot of comments, articles from my site. Okay, so when I got this invite of Regional Scrum Gathering Hyderabad, you know what? I was very, very excited because one thing I liked about Hyderabad, and Hyderabad at one point of time was a place where I used to come at least once a month in my earlier organization. So I was working with HSBC Global Technology in Pune, and almost everyone there used to be a visit to Hyderabad, and I used to really like the Karachi bakery biscuits apart from the biryani. So I was very, very excited that, you know what, now I'll get another chance to visit Hyderabad and have my favorite delicacies. And of course, the Kurbani ka meetha and all those things, right? But something drastically happened, right, with all our lives. I think all of us know what has happened in our lives for last 6 to 7 months, and which is what brings to my opening note on which I'm going to start this presentation. And when I was reading this opening note, I mean, this is something which had happened in my life in the past also. There were some decades which were very, very fast, and there were some weeks where decades happen. So it's a very valid quote in today's time. There are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen. I mean, who would have thought this 1 year back, right? When this conference was being planned, that I will be sitting at my home in the comforts of my zone, as we used to call it those days, right? And talking to people across the world, right? But here we are today, and believe me, our experience has changed a lot, right? Initially, when this work from home started, I was very, very excited. I was saying that, you know what, it's a good opportunity for me to stay at home. I don't have to wake up and drive my car in the morning. I don't have to really bother about what time I can have lunch and all. Everything would be ready at home. But you know, right, how the situation has unfolded in the last 6 8 months, and God knows how many more days we will have to actually be like this. And attend our office, attend our meetings, and attend conferences like this in a virtual environment. So, I mean, this is a quote which came to my mind that, you know what, this is what has happened with our lives. Last few weeks, rather, I would say last few months, have completely changed the way we look at life, right? I mean, this has become the new normal. In fact, social distancing was a word which was never in our vocabulary. At least it was not in my vocabulary, right? But that has become the kind of a literature word which I think all of us pronounce nowadays, right? So, on that note, let me now start with the topic for which all of you are here. That should we be measuring IT output or should we be measuring business outcome? Now, if I ask everyone here, right, if I ask everyone here, and if I ask that, okay, what is it that you measure in your transformation? So if you're working as a coach, whether you're working as a scrum master, whether you're working as a change agent, what is that thing what you're going to measure, or what is it that you measure in your engagement? I'm sure 90% of us will use that word, which I personally don't like, which is called as velocity, right? Whether we agree or not, most of us will use this word. And I'll tell you the reason why I don't like this word velocity, because I personally feel that it is a very, very misleading term, velocity, right? I think everyone asks about velocity. You ask the definition of velocity, probably before Agile came, none of us would have remembered what is velocity when we studied in standard sixth or standard seventh physics. But now you ask everyone velocity in an interview question, everyone will answer this, right? They will give you the formula also, how this velocity is measured. But personally speaking, I feel that this is the most used, misused, and abused term into our world. I'll repeat once again. Velocity is the most used, misused and abused term in the world where we live in. And I'll tell you the reason why. See, there's a general expectation. I'm sure our managers will be telling us that the team's velocity should improve. I'm sure you would have heard this. What happened is the velocity improving by 10%, a sprint on sprint. That is a very, very absurd thought. Believe me, friends, that is a very, very absurd thought. It will never happen like that. That sprint on sprint, your team velocity is increasing. It's like saying that I'm going on an aircraft from Mumbai to, let's say, Los Angeles. You know what? Initially, the plane takes off from Mumbai airport. The height is, let's say, 200 feet. Then it scales up to 500 feet. Then it scales up to 800 feet. Definitely, it will scale up, right? And somewhere it will scale up to 15,000 feet, 20,000 feet, 30,000 feet, 35,000 feet, 80,000 feet. Can it do that way? Can a plane really go that up? Probably if I'm in that plane, I will never reach Los Angeles. I'll reach somewhere else, right? If I say that, you know what, after 35,000 feet, the plane has to actually go to 40,000 feet, 50,000 feet. Ye dil mange more. And sorry for using a Hindi term here. I know we have a global audience, but just to highlight what I'm trying to tell here is that I'm expecting more and more. I'm becoming greedy. As an end, the team is working more. I'm becoming more and more greedy for this velocity to increase. That's what I'm saying. It's a very, very absurd thought. That is not what you should be measuring into your transformation or your engagement. You cannot say that a plane has to go up to 1 lakh square feet above the ground sea level, 2 lakh feet, and then it has to land into Los Angeles. No, it will never happen that way. That plane will never land in Los Angeles. It will go somewhere else and I'll be somewhere else, right? So this is what I'm saying, that as a business outcome, what we need to understand, velocity is not a business outcome. It is an output. It is an output, and there are limitations of output. What we should be measuring into our transformation is the outcome, because outcomes are going to decide what is the impact which my transformation is giving back to the business. So what we end up doing in majority of the cases is, yes, and I'm talking a bottom up approach here. You can also have a top down approach when we discuss this. The first thing is, obviously, I try to pick up the right skills. I try to pick up the right equipment. I try to pick up the right thought process, and what we call them as an input. In any engagement, whether it's a traditional project, whether it's an agile way of working, this is what we start with, or this is the starting point. We try to bring in the right set of people, the right set of processes, the right set of equipment into our processes. Then we apply action, or we have something called as a work which has to be done. We define some activities, we define some work which needs to be done, we define some tasks, right? That is what we do. And then we get something as an output. So what is the output? We say that, yes, our story has been completed. Our story has met that definition of done criteria, the DOD criteria. Our user story has met that, and we are ready to demonstrate that to the product owner, right? And believe me, most of our discussion stops here. Most of the discussion which we go into our engagement, it actually stops here. We don't really proceed beyond this. We actually restrict ourselves here. But the bigger question here is that what happened after this? What happened to my story? Yes, you have put it into the production environment, you have put the product into the Play Store, but have we as a team really tried to understand, sorry, what happened to our feature? How many people are using that feature? So let us say I have developed a product. This product has got certain features. My team has developed those features. That product is now available on Play Store. People are downloading that product from the Play Store, using it. They're providing a feedback. They're giving a rating. Have I really tried to understand that what are the top 5 features of my product? Which are the top most lovable features of my product? Which are the bottom 5 features of my product? Which are the bottom 5 features which people are which people like to use those features, or there's a lesser usage of those features? Let's take a simple product like Microsoft Word. I think most of us end up using probably only Control C, Control V, and Control X in our lifetime. Unfortunately, that's the reality of a product like Microsoft Word. How many of us really have been using the other features of Microsoft Word? How many of us are really using that feature which will actually integrate it with my Google Drive, and it will automatically send a document which I have published to, let's say, 100 of my stakeholders? So this is where I'm saying that most of us fail to go beyond the output stage. The real value of a product is that how has this feature impacted the end user? How has this feature impacted the end user? The real equation, so input plus action is equal to output. That is a straightforward equation we have in terms of mathematics. But the real challenge comes when you're trying to measure outcomes, and the equation is not straightforward. So the relationship from output to outcome and from outcome to impact, it is not a linear equation. It is actually a geometric progression to explain in terms of mathematics. So what is the outcome? Outcome is what is that big ticket problem item you're going to solve because of this story being completed. Which are the features which are available for download, and how has it made the life easier for the end user? Is my product ready to be deployed on the Google Play Store or on the Apple Store? Or do I still need to do something in order for that product to be productionized onto the Play Store or onto the Apple Store? And the impact and value which we are going to generate out of this is the critical numbers at a strategic level. So what are those critical numbers at a strategic level? How many downloads have happened from the Play Store of my product? Vis-a-vis my competition, what is my benchmark analysis? In which area I am ahead of my competition? In which area I am behind the competition? In which area I am actually at par with my competitor? What has been my product growth? What is the revenue? What has been the numbers around the revenue? So if I've launched a product, what has been the revenue of that product? How many people have, what is the monetization index of that product? So this is something which any transformation has to cater to: the impact, value, the outcome which this feature is going to generate, or the kind of, I would say, the equation is more related to this. So in fact, when we talk about the impact, value, or outcome the product is generating, it has to reflect somewhere. It has to reflect in, let us say, the product owner's vision. It has to reflect in your leadership. It has to reflect in the narrative which they are going to make with the outside world. So I always believe that people who are working in an agile team, all the folks who are working in an agile team, and here I'm not going to talk about any particular associate, whether it's a product owner, whether it's a scrum master, whether it's, let's say, the development team as we call it, everyone should love the wonderful products which they are developing, because until and unless you love the products and the features you are developing, you are not going to come to that outcome and that impact and value. You will be restricted here only. You know what's going to happen? My job as a developer would be that, okay, the sprint planning meeting has happened, let me start doing the coding. And then there's a tester who's going to work with me, who's going to pair with me, and we together will test, develop test, and that's it, and we'll give a demo. That's the end of it. No, what I'm saying is there also has to be an emotional connect with our product. Only if we have an emotional connect with our products and the features what we are developing, we will be able to quantify, if I were to say, the business outcome and the impact which it is going to the organization, the value which this feature or a product is giving to the organization as a whole. So this is a very, very classic picture. I'm sure many of you know this picture. This is a picture of Empire State Building in the 1930s. It's a real picture, by the way. It's not a fake picture. I verified the source before I'm putting it here. Remember, those days, there were not those sophisticated cameras which we have today. This is a picture of a beam constructed, I think, on floor number 100 on Empire State Building. And these are the people who have constructed that beam. So they are sitting on that beam to tell the entire world that this is a product which we have constructed. And we are challenging you that this is not going to fall. This is a product. This is what we call as quality assurance and quality control, friends. Not the automation test cases, what we do, not the automated builds and the deployments, what we do. This is a test of your product. This is the quality test of your product. Here we have people from different nationalities. When I read about this picture, these are people from different countries who were deployed there to work on this product, and they were sitting there to demonstrate to the world that nothing is going to happen to this beam which we have constructed. That is the strength of quality assurance. We talk about pairing, right? We talk about developer tester pairing, we talk about pair programming, we talk about TDD. This is a classic example of that, and this is a 1930s picture. So it was not a concept which has come out recently. This was there since long. And as I said, you should love your product. You should have the confidence about the features. Forget what your test cases are telling. I'm confident here that this product will work as intended. That's the level of confidence which these people are showing here on this beam where they have actually sat, right? So you can Google this. This is a classic picture which is available, the Empire State Building construction, where they were actually discussing like, oh, it's a great product what we have developed, and we value the product which we have developed. How many of us actually remember the features which have gone into our product, right? We just do a demo and forget about it, right? We don't even recall, okay, what were the features, what pains it took us to develop that kind of an exciting feature, which is putting our competition way behind us in terms of revenue, in terms of skills, in terms of expertise. I think that's the narrative we have to build when we are showcasing our products in the demo. What happens is we just show demo for the sake of it. We don't really go to that demo with the love of the feature, is what I feel in many of the cases, which is where I'm trying to tell that until and unless you love the good features what you have developed, until and unless you love the product what you have developed, you're not going to really come out with the outcome. You're not going to come out with the impact what this product has created into the real world, into the hands of the end users or into the hands of the end customer. Okay, so what is the outcome all about? I think I talked about outcome, I talked about output. So before I come to output, this is what we end up measuring in most of the cases, right? We talk about velocity being improving, and I think I talked about it. A plane cannot infinitely go high and high. It has to reach a stable state of 35,000 feet above the ground sea level, because then only it can safely come down. So in our engagement also, when we talk about an agile transformation project, obviously you will go at one point, but there will be a plateau, and after which it will become fairly stable. So what I'm trying to tell here is, okay, this is more like an output based measurement. I'm not saying that you should not be doing it. Definitely you should be doing this, but what is more important is an outcome based measurement, because only the outcome based measurement will help you identify the impact what your features have created in the, or the buzz what your features have created in the market. So one of the graphs which shows here is that how your features were added into the product and what was the value which it generated. So obviously there's one way of measuring values in terms of dollars, but that's not the only way of measuring business value. There are other units of measurement of business value also. So what this graph talks about is that, okay, how much is the value which this feature has generated? And as you can see, this shows a huge correlation, right? Obviously, there has to be a strong correlation. You cannot have a negative correlation, which means that you're adding features, but the business value has declined over a period of time. So obviously that indicates that your product has actually failed, right? So that is one way of measuring that how much is the value you are generating when you are loading the features or when you are adding the features into the product basket, if I were to say. So coming back to outcome, what is the outcome? And what is the output? Output is something, as I said, input plus action will lead to an output. But outcome, if I go by the standard definition of Forrester, it says that it's an achieved end state, which is verifiable, something which is verifiable, something which you can measure and you can verify it, right? That is a outcome, what we say. It is obviously tied to a business funded initiative. So your business has funded that particular initiative. So they would definitely like that outcome to be successful outcome. And there is a outcome owner. There's a person called as a outcome owner. This person is accountable for the end state. This is the person who's also going to verify the end state of the outcome, whether this outcome has been achieved or not. it might get colored by the interests of the related stakeholders. So sometimes what happens is, not sometimes, in fact, most of the times, you have multiple stakeholders in your engagement. So each person will try to interpret this outcome in his or her way. You might have seen that classic DevOps elephant, right? I'm sure you would have seen that DevOps elephant. Each person has got a different perspective about DevOps. Some person thinks that it's a tool. Some person thinks that it's an infrastructure. Some person thinks that it's more like a CI/CD pipeline. So something similar happens with an outcome. It gets colored by the interest of a related stakeholder, and it is achieved over a point in time. It is not something like you go from A to B. That is more like an output. Your outcome is over a period of time, and many times the outcome which is achieved, it also, the challenge is to sustain that outcome. The challenge is also to sustain that particular outcome. So I'll ask you, give you a quick example here. So you know what had happened? I'll come back to that equation, that original equation which I had. Yeah, input plus action is equal to output. So this is the original equation which I had. And in the context of outcome, let us try to understand this in more detail. So you know what? I decided to reduce my weight. I think you would have come to know by now that I'm a foodie lover. I talked about all those wonderful things which are available in Hyderabad, the Karachi biscuit, the biryani, and the Kurbani ka meetha and all, double ka meetha. So obviously I'm a foodie lover. And you know what? Obviously, when I went for a medical checkup, the doctor said, you know what, your BMI is slightly skewed. So I think you'll have to start working on reducing the weight. I said, okay, fine, I can do that. I'll start from today itself. So obviously, I decided to have some kind of a input towards it. You know what happened? I thought that, you know what, I will skip breakfast. I will skip breakfast for 20 days and automatically my weight will get reduced. So the input was, the thought was, you know what, that I have to reduce weight. Okay, I have to reduce weight. Action was, I will skip breakfast. I think you can guess the output. Okay, the output, I think you can always guess, right? And obviously, what happened is when I went to the doctor for measuring the outcome, the doctor said your BMI has actually been more damaging now. It has become more worse now. So obviously, I thought that the output was a correct output by doing this input and action, but the output itself was wrong. So obviously, the outcome was wrong, right? So obviously, the solution was not to skip breakfast. The solution was more to have, let's say, exercise. The solution was more to do a walk in the park, or to go for a gymnasium, right? To take up a gym membership and go for it. So the input and the actions were totally wrong in that case, which led to a wrong output, which led to a wrong outcome as such, right? So outcome is something which is achieved over a period of time. You might find that it takes a lot of time to achieve the right outcome, and many times, as I said, we are more bothered with the output. So I might have been happy, for example, you know what, that my weight has reduced if I'm skipping breakfast, but the reverse happened. The reverse happened because my breakfast intake was not there. I started eating more in the lunch, right? So that's the narrative which we have to build, that how do we make sure that the outcome is something which is always focused on. So as I said, I talked about this velocity chart. I talked about the, what is the value to the feature equation what we have. Is it a positive correlation or a direct positive correlation, or is it an indirect correlation what I'm getting? That is something which we as change agents, that is something which we as agile coaches and leaders should actually be measuring, rather than measuring on just on the velocity side of it. So velocity is more like, I would say, a kind of a dipstick measure. It'll give you a kind of a quick number, or it'll give you a kind of a quick indication. But again, the accuracy of that is something which you have to take into account. You have to take it account with a pinch of salt. Just because your velocity is increasing doesn't mean that your team is a high performing team. The real essence of a high performing team is, as I said, what is the value which you're delivering to the business and to the end customer. So the value to the business will be derived from the value which your features give to your end customers and to the end users. Okay, now coming to this, again, another diagram which I have. So in the initial days of my agile transformation, when I started my journey as a scrum master, as a in the earlier organization, since the first thing obviously I did, and I think all of us do this, is we have a team which is doing a traditional SDLC kind of a working, a traditional waterfall working. We train them. We do a Scrum Master training. We do a Agile 2-day boot camp with them. We train them. We talk about the events. We talk about the artifacts. We talk about the three roles: the product owner, the Scrum Master, and the team. And we have all those things like it's a cross-functional, self-organized team. What we have, and we think that this is transformation. We label this as transformation. When I say we, I mean, this is what I've heard when I interact with people. So when I ask people, okay, what is it that you're doing in agile transformation, they say, you know what, I'm starting with this engagement from tomorrow. The first thing I'm going to do in transformation is I'm going to have a 2 days training with them. I'm going to teach them what are scrum events, what are the what we call as artifacts, what are the three roles. We call it as a transformation. I meet that person after 4 months. I ask him, okay, fine, you have done all this. What next? Oh, you know what? We did the process agility. Now we are going into IT operations. We are going to now build a CI/CD pipeline. We are going to have a automation build. We are going to have a push button deployment. So those are the things what we are going to do. So if I analyze the person, not that I'm here to do any micromanagement, but if I analyze this personality of this person, and it includes me also, by the way, I'm not excluding myself. This was a problem even I was doing it in my earlier days of my Scrum Master and coaching. If I analyze this, what I'm thinking as a transformation is not really a transformation. This is nothing but a transition. This is a transition. There's a difference between transformation and transition. The middle block, what I have shown you here, is just transition activities. These are not really transformation activities. So what is the difference between transition and transformation? Transition is just a change. You're just changing from X to Y. Transformation is a complete overhaul. It's like a complete overhaul of your system is what we call as a transformation. Like in the exercise example, right? So let's say that I say that I'm going to skip my breakfast. That is not really transformation. Okay, that is not really transformation. Or let's say that I say that, you know what, I'm going to have, let us say, a lesser food from tomorrow. That is just a transition. Today I was having, let us say, a heavy 4 course meal, and then I'm going to reduce my intake. That is just a transition. Transformation is a complete package. So not only I'm going to have a balanced diet, probably I'll start having food every 2 hours, as a famous dietitian says, without taking names here. I will do a lot of exercise. I will do a lot of walk. I will make sure that I climb down from my 8-story building at least once down through the staircase, not using the elevator. That is a complete transformation, which I'm talking about, right? So when we talk about the middle portion, most of us think that being an agile coach or a scrum master, what we are doing here is a transformation. This is not a transformation. This is a transition, what we call. What I am saying here is that as a coach, the value which you have to bring to your organization is by coaching your product teams. So you have to apply a shift left and a shift right strategy. You have to expand your horizon. You have to spread your tentacles, as they say in an octopus. You have to shift left and you have to shift right. What is the shift left and shift right? I think, sorry for the fact that the y-axis description is not coming here. It is called as business value. So you have to coach your product leadership in identifying business value drivers. What is it that you're trying to solve with this feature? What is that big ticket item you're going to solve with this feature? What is the problem statement, or what is that enhancement you're going to give to the end user by having this feature? That is the discussion you should be having. You should help them in prioritizing the value drivers. Very rarely we see agile coaches coaching the product leadership or the product owners. We should also work on funding the value. In fact, those of you who would have attended any product owner training would have undergone through this game, right? Buy a feature game, where you're given some currency note and you have to put your bet on which feature should go into the product, which feature should not go into the product. Now, this is where a lot of coaching is required. I'm sure you would have heard about the keynote from Roman Pichler. He talked about the same thing in a different way. He exactly mentioned the same thing, that there's a lot of discussion needed even before you start doing sprinting, as they say, or whichever agile framework you are using. This is where the real coaching has to start. We unfortunately start at number 4. Whenever we get into any transformation engagement as an agile coach, we are either parachuted when there's a crisis, or we are either parachuted to do this. But believe me, this should just 20% of your time. Unfortunately, today we spend 80% of our time in Tower B. Ideally, 80% of your time should go as a coach into Tower A and Tower C, which is value identification by coaching product owners and measuring the value which has been realized once the product has been deployed in the production environment or in the cloud. If I were to say in today's lingo, once my product is on the cloud, what is it taking to for people to download? How many downloads have happened in last 1 week, right? Is the product sustainable, or a better product has come into the market which is actually making our downloads lesser? Do we need to refocus on the value which we have delivered in the first go? Should we come back and refine the value which will take us back here? So these are the kind of narratives, or these are the kind of discussions where we should be involved as a coach. So we have to really expand our territory. If I were to say, we have to really move left, we have to really move right as coaches, and that is where we should be working with our leadership. That is where we should be working with our middle management, senior management, in coaching them, because that's where, believe me, the real blue ocean, or the passing the Rubicon, as they say, lies, right? If you be here, believe me, you won't last in this transformation probably for just 4 to 5 months. But if you want to really create a value for coaching, a shift left and a shift right strategy is needed. Now, I understand the fact that it's very easy to say here in a conference. It's very difficult to implement. Absolutely right. There's always this great wall or a barrier between this. So you have to really cross this barrier. On the left hand side and on the right hand side, there's that great barrier which you will have to cross, right? And some of the dimensions where you should be measuring a business outcome or an impact what your product is creating, I've tried to depict it in an impact value cube. Is obviously there were some of them are well known, like for example, how much is the growth of the product once a feature has been rolled out into the product? How much has been the growth? How many downloads have happened? As I said, how many markets have you catered to? So let us say I load a feature. Is this feature available in all the geographies of the world, or is it restricted? For example, let's take UPI. If I launch a UPI feature in a product, it will be only available in India, right? It's not available outside India, because that's a India specific payment gateway. So how much is the market which this is catering to, and also the dynamics of the market? So it makes sense for me to launch a UPI based payment, because we are a country of 1.3 billion with a very high mobile penetration. Post demonetization, obviously the digitization has increased. So it makes sense for me to launch a UPI based feature, although it may not be rolled out to the outside world. How many customers I have added once this feature has been rolled in? Okay, so these are some of the numbers related to the dollar value or the rupee value or to the GBP value what we can get, right? Also, because of a feature being launched, how much is the operational efficiency you have been able to deploy? For example, let us take hypothetically that I have rolled out a feature due to which now I can change my ATM pin without going to an ATM. This is an operational efficiency which I've achieved. In the era of social distancing, I'm avoiding a lesser crowd at my ATM machine. Indirectly, I'm contributing to a lesser spread of COVID. I mean, it's an indirect correlation, but that is what I'm trying to do with the operational efficiency, right? Employee satisfaction. Because of this feature, there have been lesser calls to my call center. So my employees as a whole are satisfied now. So remember the initial days of lockdown in India, April 22nd, right? The first 2 weeks, I tried to reach out to my bank call center. There was no response. Okay. And then you know what? I get a message from my bank saying that, you know what, these features are available in an app. So why don't you try those? And obviously, I was happy to use those features on my app, on my banking app. So it indirectly led to an employee satisfaction. Now, remember one more thing, your product can either have a business value or it can have a social value also. So remember, not all products have got a dollar value. There's a social value or a social equity also what you create out of a product. A classic example, and again, I'm using an India specific example, the Arogya Setu app. So Government of India has released a healthcare app called Arogya Setu. And this app actually alerts me if I'm going into an area, whether it's a high frequency COVID area or it's a low intensity COVID area or somewhere middle. So it has those indicators. It has those red, amber, green indicators, and it actually helps me identify which are the concentrated areas where there has been a COVID resurgence, or whether there has been a extra number of cases about COVID which have happened. So that's a social value of the product. That is a dashboard which it gives me. So it's not just the dollar value of a product which we need to come out with. It could be the social benefits which this product is trying to come out with. So those are some of the business value drivers which we should be measuring. I mean, this is what will give you the impact, what impact it is creating to my business. Because of having this transformation done, my impact is in terms of dollars, my impact is in terms of improved of operational efficiency, my impact is in terms of more and more employees being satisfied. So those are the impact cube, or the impact value cube, some of the parameters which I've tried to develop. Now, unfortunately, business value is what we talk about the most, but unfortunately we don't measure it. I mean, when you talk about this topic in your corridors of your agile transformation, obviously this is a topic which I agree to the fact that it is the most neglected topic, but this is the vital topic. Believe me, this is the most vital topic. Otherwise you will never know the success or the failure of your agile transformation. And some I would say matrix which I've tried to list down here. Obviously some of the things, some of the industries where I have been working in the past, where we derive these metrics. Obviously if it's an electrical company for which you're developing a solution, what matters is the mean time between an outage. So today there was an outage. When will be the next outage? Can we predict that? If it's an e-governance product, the business metric is more about how quickly we are grievance redressal is happening, right? If it's a marketing product, how many active users are watching this ad on this product, or people are using that skip button after 5 seconds, like what we have in YouTube, right? We have that 5-second option that you can skip the ad and you can continue watching your video. Then daily active minutes. Yeah, hello, someone is speaking, sorry. Okay, I think I'll move ahead. Yeah. Okay. So then from a social metric, as I said, how much is the literacy rate improved because of this app, right? Are people getting employee ads? So let's say if a government releases an employment exchange on the internet, an app, how many people are getting benefited? How many customers are added? How many, what is the feature to revenue correlation? So these are the matrix what we should be actually tracking. And obviously the some of the well-knowns, the CSAT index, the net promoter score, these are some of the matrix, or these are some of the impacts or the outcomes what we should be tracking in any transformation. Not just the velocity, not just the output. Again, I'm repeating, it's more about the outcome. So what are some of the values which we need to measure? I mean, maybe I'll take another just 5 more minutes. So we always measure in terms of output, in terms of how good or bad my demo has been, right? We measure in terms of how many hackathons we have done. We have that data. I mean, if you ask any agile team, this data would be available. The outcome would be the features rolled out, the top 5, bottom 5 features, how much time it took me to release a feature. But the real impact or the value realization would come when we measure, did it correlate with higher product sale? Was I able to charge a premium for my feature? Can I charge a premium value for my feature? That is what is the impact what we are trying to get from a revenue perspective. From an innovation perspective, yes, we measure velocity, we measure story point increase over time. I'm not saying you should not do that, but the real essence is, what has it led to the outcome? Are we delivering more features in lesser time or in the same time? Are our features stable? Is my product a better product vis-a-vis competition? As I talked about the benchmark analysis, are we doing a benchmark analysis? Am I getting a faster feedback from the market that, you know what, this feature we loved it, but we need an enhancement? Can you add this feature? Can you add more of features? Like you would have seen, right? I mean, I'm taking some names here, but you would have seen, right? After lockdown started, there's a heavy competition between Zoom and Microsoft Teams. They keep on releasing features and they try to outwit each other. This is coming from the market. This is coming from the innovation quadrant of the so the first quadrant is revenue, the second quadrant is innovation from an outcome perspective, the third quadrant is scalability of the feature. Is there a robust growth pipeline of my product? is my product reliable? Because of a feature being released, has there been an increase in number of customers who have signed up? Can I charge a premium, as I said earlier? So how scalable has my product become because of the features being added? And lastly, obviously, about quality. Quality is something which is has an intrinsic value and an extrinsic value. Overall, obviously, quality is something which cannot be discounted. So we talk about, yes, my automation test coverage is 85% in terms of output. We talk about a code coverage. We talk about a risk burn down chart. We talk about strengthening our test coverage. But what is the outcome of this? Definitely, there are lesser defect leakages, right? But has it led to a better product stability and reliability? That's the outcome we should be measuring. That's the impact what we have been able to create to the end user. So let's say earlier there were more outages of the product, but because of these output and outcome, has it led to a better stability and a better reliability of my product? So these are some of the, I would say, value realization matrix which one should be tracking in any transformation. So with this, I pause my narrative here, and now I'm opening up if there are any questions anyone has.
Thank you, Ashutosh, for the wonderful session. We got a lot of feedback
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of questions. I'll take one by one. Uh, yeah. So the first question we
Okay,
have
sure,
is
sure.
how would we define value in the outcomes where today requirements sometimes come in a fixed bid project and we use agile methodology and the
Mm-hmm.
decisions is primarily coming from a product owner.
So sorry, the
Yeah, how do
question
we
is how do
define
we define
value
value,
in an
right?
outcome-based model, which is majorly a fixed bid, but we put in agile, and the
Mm-hmm.
decisions are majorly dependent on the
Mm-hmm.
product owner.
Right. So see, value is something, okay, value is something, see, let us say that what is the value of a feature? So let us say, I hope it doesn't happen like this, okay? So sorry for using this example. Let us say I suddenly go offline. I go suddenly offline due to something wrong happening at my end. What will be the experience? People will say that no, the experience was not great, right? We could not even hear to what Ashutosh said. So that is a value of this product, or that is a value of this feature. Now again, if you ask me how will you mention it in quantifiable terms, here probably the dollar value is not a correct way of identifying the value. Here it's the delay in the session. So what's going to happen is the session is going to get delayed. So instead of this session ending at, let's say, 9:30 p.m., it might go on at till 10:15 p.m. So that's a loss of time. People will be less interested. They will not learn from the conference, so they will try to correlate with the fees which they have paid. That they will say that one of the sessions was really a pathetic session, so we did not get a value out of it. So I will say that the reverse way of looking at a value is that what it takes if a particular feature does not work. So in your ATM card, let us say you insert an ATM card and the screen goes blank, what happens to you? What is the experience? That is the value which that feature carries. Now yes, I'm talking about more in terms of qualitative aspect, but the real essence here is, that's why I said, like, input plus action is equal to output, but there's no correlation between output and outcome. That's a model which you have to be an Einstein and develop that equation for it, that what is that outcome of that feature not working in terms of dollar terms, in terms of time, in terms of experience. And remember, there's a reputational risk also you carry with this. So if I take a ICICI Bank credit card, it does not operate. I'm not going to recommend that to my friends. I'm not going to recommend that to my family members. Right. So that is where that equation becomes a little tricky. Now, coming to a fixed bid project, definitely already you're tying my hands. You're saying that the scope is fixed. You're saying that the budget is fixed, time is fixed. Obviously this will be a like a tight rope, like a trapeze artist to walk through this. Nevertheless, what I have experienced in a fixed bid project is, I don't call it as a change management strategy. I always call it as an exchange management strategy, which I have used. So in a fixed bid project, if you say that, okay, you want to change something, I'll say that no, I can't add something, I'll exchange it something. So something lower ticket item goes out, this item comes in. So that's the exchange model which I will talk about it.
Thank you for such an elaborate answer, Ashutosh. Couple of more questions we have, and we have time for that too, probably. One is, will the
Mm-hmm.
transformation
Mm-hmm.
bring value or transition to the stakeholders/sponsor?
No, see, transition is different. Transition is just, as I said, it's a very, very minor change what you're doing in yourself. Okay, so transition is just a very, very minor change. Transformation is a complete package rehaul, right? So as I gave an example, right? Transition is that, okay, I mean, you're just making, let's say, you're eating, let's say, lesser food on a day-to-day basis. Your food quantity remains same, but you're eating lesser food. The quantity is lesser, I would say. You're still eating fatty food. You're still eating that high-calorie food, but the quantity has reduced. That is transition. Transformation is completely, I'm going on a, let's say, a veggie diet. Or transformation is completely, I'm going on a ketone diet. So that's what we call as a transformation. So yes, definitely to have a transformation, I need transition as a prerequisite. My transformation cannot happen without transition. But yes, what I was trying to hint at in the presentation is many times we equate transition equal to transformation, which is not the case. So transition is a subset of transformation.
Great. Yes. Another quick one. I think you have already answered here, but if you want to add something, the question is, how do we measure value or outcome for a platform or slash some component?
Okay. Yes. I mean, that's a very good question, by the way. Yes. I mean, this is a question. So, yes, probably I might have given the impression that value is only for the end product or something which is visible to the end user. No. I mean, whatever is your intermediate state, that also has got a value. Now, here, obviously, here it's your internal customer who has to determine the value. So, the platform stability, if your platform is stable for a period of time, obviously your internal customer is the one who's going to say that yes, it's a valuable product, it's a product which has created an impact, and this is the heart of my product. I mean, when you hear these words, right, our platform is the heart, or our operating system is the heart of our laptop, that's where you're giving a value to that particular product.
We are almost done, but I think we can take one more last question. And Anthony.
So I think Anand has answered that question, by the way. Anand, that's a nice example. I'm a coffee lover, by the way. It didn't come to me, but thanks, Anand, for explaining that. So learning to make a coffee is a transition. Going to barista, being a barista is a transformation experience.
Great, great. A quick, I think we're almost done, but if you want to take one last question is from Anthony there. Are there best practices available for giving a value, a number, so that we can compare items systematically for prioritization?
No, unfortunately, see, at least I have not found that equation. Otherwise, I would have become an Einstein, next Einstein. That E is equal to MC square is something which you have to find out. I mean, yes, there have been some models, algorithmic models around it, but believe me, at the end of the day, it's your own equation. You own up that equation. As I said, it's very easy to have that initial part of the equation, input plus action is equal to output. And the output to outcome to impact is something that equation you have to do a trial and error, I would say. I mean, it's as difficult, it's as complex logic. I mean, sorry for taking a cricket example. I know not all of us are from cricket loving countries, but it's as complex as the Duckworth-Lewis formula.
Yes, that's a good example. Thank you for that. There are a couple of guys asking for some reference or any website. If you can post it probably in an event chat, and they will pick it up. Great.
Sure. I'll do that. I'll do that. And in any case, you can connect with me. I'm available on LinkedIn. We can anyways connect on LinkedIn and we can talk about it.
I will share your LinkedIn profile with everyone, and everyone can connect. Thanks a lot, Ashutosh, for the wonderful session.
Sure. Thanks, Gagan. I hope, I mean, there was a value and the impact was created. Otherwise, it will just be input plus action is equal to output. But then again, I leave it to the audience. I hope there was an outcome, impact, and a value created out of it. Yeah, sure. Thanks. So please give me your feedback, good, bad, whatever it is.
There is already a poll which everyone is seeing and doing it. I think you will get a consolidated feedback. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
And for viewers, guys, there is a networking which is opening up, and you can network with each other as much as you want. It is open whole night. If you are in a global arena, you can network with everyone and anyone. We totally have 375 participants in this app, Hopins app. So please go ahead and network after this. Thank you all for joining. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Gagan, and it was wonderful. Once again, thanks to RSG Hyderabad team for inviting me. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.